Thank
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. We have a small group today. Looks like Angela and I are here in person. We have Aaron and Fred on Zoom. I think maybe Tyson is headed in the door. Terry is not going to be able to make it today. And I haven't heard from him, so hopefully he will get here soon. Anyway, I'm fine to hear you. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and if everyone will please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and then we'll have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. So feels a little fun here with just the three of us. We've got two on, Fred and Aaron are on Zoom. Terry's not gonna make it, and I don't remember what was going on with Jim. Was Jim not gonna go?
Jim was also, in case they would not this meeting.
Okay. All right, but we're fine, we've got a forum, we'll march on. I'm not aware of any minutes that we have. We need to approve. We do have minutes to approve. Okay, we have them three. 31st to 7. Okay. We have meeting minutes. To approve. March 23rd. Hey, Brad and Aaron, have you had a chance to review the minutes, or do you need a minute to do that?
Yes, this is Fred. I don't have any comments.
Okay, fantastic. Aaron?
I'm good.
Okay.
I have several comments.
Hey,
On first, page 3, it states the general plan to remove TDRs. I think in the end, we brought forward a recommendation that largely removed the TDRs, but there were references remaining that allowed a TDR program to develop in the future. Just to clarify that point. It also states that we moved to call the plan an interim plan. We discussed that it will function as an interim plan, but we're not officially calling it an interim plan. So we need to correct that. And then it said in the text amendment that RMH 1-6 is being removed. And I think when we forwarded it on at that point, we decided to keep that in place and we were not changing that. So that should be corrected. It also refers to removing the manufacturing zone, and that was not discussed. So that I think should be removed. And then I have no issues with the 7th. On the 13th, regarding conditional uses, it states that I suggested simplifying the application process. Actually, it was the opposite. There was a discussion about simplifying the application process for specific uses, but in the end, I believe that we found that we could keep it consistent across the board, and many of those application requirements were subjective already, depending on the intensity of the application. And then in item D, regarding sensitive land overlay zone, it said that I recommended removing wildlife habitat paragraph, but I just don't recall that. So if somebody wanted to check the transcript, but otherwise we could remove that.
removing wildlife habitat from the sensitive overlay zone?
Yeah, I don't recall having that discussion.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like me. I wasn't at the meeting, but.
And then at the end it said that I motioned to adjourn, but I was chairing the meeting, so somebody else must have made that motion in second, other than myself. And that's all I have.
Terry, which was the H 16, could you, that would have been March 31st. You said,
RMH,
oh,
so
okay.
sorry, I'm Commissioner Dean.
Oh, sorry,
okay,
Angela.
fine. It said that we recommended removing that zone. But that's not RMH -1-6.
Okay, got it.
That was not the case. We're not recommending removing that zone.
Anything else to add?
Okay, I was not at that meeting and so I don't have recollections, but
So I'd like to move to approve the minutes for March 31st, April 7th, and April 13th with the stated corrections.
Do you need to send that to
Okay.
Recorder Helene so that she has that information? Would that be helpful, Helene? She made notes, she has notes when after she went through.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay. Maybe you could share just in case.
Well, please.
Yeah, I'll give you my email.
Okay,
Great.
I'll second Angela's motion.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, any opposed? I think that was all 5 of us, so I think that's a unanimous. Also, we have Helene Liebman here who is doing our notes for us, and so we're going to make sure that we stop for anything she needs as she's learning us and learning our process, but she's super skilled and amazing and we really appreciate her, so. Helene, welcome to the team, we really appreciate you so much. Okay, I do not have agendas for everyone because of Helene has to print a few more. Because I went over to print them and I was told that the printer is out of toner, so I was unable to print them, but Helene did print a few of them. We have them.
Is it BRI?
Yes, with my, yeah.
Thank you.
I mean,
Think you got.
hey. Right. The first item on our agenda is to review and discuss chapter 104-11 CDR 1. So I'm going to pull that up on, let's see if I have. Oh, I'm gonna need to, oh, no, it did. Okay. I'm gonna pull it up on my
Where are you guys pulling it up?
PC drafts
Yeah.
and then commercial. Yeah, that's what.
There we go.
Okay, let's start talking. I'm just trying to pull. And so I have it in front of me also.
I'll bring it up so that it's on
Oh, thanks.
the monitor for the audience.
Do we have very many people on an audience too, or in addition to our? Commissioners?
5.
Oh, nice. Great.
Okay.
Okay, this one needed. There were a lot of thoughts on this one, so we've got things to talk about here. One of the things, let's see, where should we start here? one of the things we talked about was that the resort residential, the resort piece, resort recreation name, didn't really seem to fit so well because we don't really have many resorts. We have in just, there's Wolf Creek and there's Nordic Valley. But the areas that are zoned, we didn't feel like the businesses really needed to just be resort oriented. We wanted to emphasize that spreading two different types of commercial areas, and this area was more attuned to the walkable village style. So as we were thinking about it, I think we talked about what kinds of businesses made sense in a walkable village type zones. That might we recall, Angela?
Well, that was basically CB two, this one, I think we were still sort of, maybe it wasn't resort, but there was still kind of a recreational focus.
Yeah, okay.
Being by port, marina and locations like accessing.
Okay.
Recreation, that was my recollection, it's been.
Okay, I know, I have to admit.
So, yeah, so whether it's CBR as in resort or recreation, or we changed the name, but let me just, should I just read what the intent and purpose
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
stated?
Great.
Purpose of this, whatever we call it, zone, is to provide locations where service facilities and goods normally required by the public in the pursuit of general recreation activities can be obtained. Recognizes and provides for the orderly development of certain properties as a tourist recreation, hospitality, business and gathering destination that may include cohesive and complementary mixture of land uses, including commercial, residential, and recreation. In this role, even though the area is primarily commercial in nature, it should be compatible with the general surrounding natural environment to the sound and general siting and architectural design. The parking areas and landscaping shall be subject to review and recommendations by the agencies, yeah, so. That was sort of the high level intent and purpose that was modified,
And one of the questions was that Karen had was who are the public agencies, and I guess that would be things like the health department,
Mhm.
those kinds of
Yeah.
groups.
Department, water, sewer companies.
Yeah, okay.
and then I think looking at the use of this one doesn't have a table per se like all of the others, so staff will develop a table.
If you'd like to.
If you want, or I'm fine with the list, it's a pretty short list, so that's fine for now. And we basically going through the list of prior permitted uses. The only changes we made to the list of permitted were that for a bank, we're excluding drive-up windows. Removal of the short-term rental for now until that's resolved in the future. And then with conditional uses, we actually moved many of them into permitted use. Those that were removed and recommended to be non-permitted would be recreation lodge, recreation resort complex, snowmobile trails, golf courses, timeshare, off-road vehicle sales, ski resorts, because that's not applicable to where we have these. It looks like we've removed restaurants, but I'm not sure why. And hotel motels. So this is all up for discussion. Obviously, these were kind of comments within the small working group at the time. So we just kind of talk through everybody.
Brad has his hand up, ready to go.
Hey, Brad.
Hey, just on the banks, excluding those with drive-up windows, would that eliminate ATMs?
I think an ATM can be freestanding. They have ATMs in the in the grocery store, and I think there are a lot of, I think a business can put a freestanding ATM inside their business. I believe is or was one outside of the Chevron at one point. And there's one at the Valley Market. So I don't think that would eliminate an ATM, but it would eliminate an ATM drive-through.
And why would we want to eliminate that? It seems like most of these banks you see now have ATM drive-ups, maybe not even a window there, but have an ATM drive-up.
Yeah, I think the idea was the traffic, talking about the traffic, having a lot of traffic backed up. I don't know if you noticed, like in the grocery store, some days when there's a lot of, that traffic just backs up, and then there's the environmental concerns of just having all those, when the cars are all in line, the idling, that is not environmentally friendly. It's not good for the air quality to have a bunch of cars just sitting and waiting in line. And it really can bugger up the traffic when people need to get through. I don't think it isn't going to affect the drive-throughs that we currently have. But I think that was the rationale.
How would a new drive-through negatively affect traffic?
Because if people are lining up to go through the drive-through, then it backs up traffic. And for example, one of the drive-throughs we have is in the grocery store parking lot. There are times when if someone needed to drive around the back, or it's backed up 4 or 5 or 6 cars, it's hard to navigate through the parking lots.
Could that be managed through design conditions imposed on a drive-through?
Our discussion was we just could do without drive-throughs.
Let me play devil's advocate for you,
Sure.
because the city council would.
Okay.
Could a design condition be placed such that it would mitigate your concerns of blocking traffic, impeding movement through a parking lot? Because we're not talking about another bank in the grocery store parking lot. We're talking about another bank on a completely new site with a new parking lot design and a new circulation design. Idling is a different issue, but in terms of traffic mitigation, could design standards be used to alleviate your concerns there? If they made sure that the parking lot was big enough to load enough traffic into the drive-through, or if they made sure that the parking lot for the bank was separate from other commercial parking lots so that a line at the bank didn't spill into other uses.
Yeah, this is Fred. I would favor that. I think that, the drive-throughs are probably more traffic efficient the way they're set up as opposed to having somebody have to stop, park a car, walk somewhere, walk back out. You're going to have to provide parking spaces. You have to think about more parking spaces. And I don't know that that's beneficial, as opposed to, I'm just thinking how the drive-throughs we have, like at Zions Bank, goes pretty fast. And I don't see any traffic issues there.
I agree with Brenda.
Okay.
I think we have in the back of our minds this idea of walkable area, but even if you look at the current parcels that have this zone are not, they're very, very small. We're not talking about some sort of district or even something that already exists as a walkable space. So to just impose that upon banks seems unnecessary at this point.
Yeah, I guess, in some walkable areas, I see that if you have pedestrians walking around, I can see that a drive-in window it could be problematic. I can also see that maybe that isn't the case now. What do you think, Angela?
I'm kind of stuck on this walkable thing. I don't know that this was the primary purpose of this zone. I know in the other commercial zone,
That was more.
the CV2 that was focused on the village node area, these are sort of scattered. Not really walkable in a connected way to each other, so I don't know that I would use that as the driving force for
Do
the
you,
permitted uses.
do you want to take out the exclusion of drive-up windows for banks?
I think based on feedback, I'd be fine with that.
Okay.
Do that.
Yes. Okay.
But we're still excluding short-term rentals now
Mhm.
for the purpose of
Mhm.
getting that established. So that now short-term rentals is the only change to what was prior permitted.
Mhm.
And then we jumped into the conditional uses. There were questions of definitions, so I was just gonna pull up the definitions.
Okay, we did strike the title for the subsection conditional uses. Do you want to restore that?
No, I think we were just gonna walk through those, so I don't think we left anything
We're not
conditional.
They're
We
not
were just gonna go through what those items were that
Okay.
have been moved up to permitted uses. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So if they're not stricken below, then they could be.
Then they're going to be moved up into permitted. I'm wondering about restaurants.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why did we take out restaurants?
I think restaurants would be appropriate here.
I think restaurants are appropriate. I think that, I would,
Restaurants are added under, restaurants are included under the permitted uses list.
oh, it's already there.
Maybe that's-
Okay, oh,
It
restaurants.
does exclude drive-through.
Excluding private windows, and that was part of the desire to not have much fast food places also.
So that I'm comfortable keeping, are you all? Okay.
So I would recommend, just for the sake of clarifying definitions, I would recommend changing beer parlor to tavern or bar. So that we don't have, because we've got, 8 different definitions of what.
Yeah, and what did we end up using?
Business serving beer.
What did we end up using for our, in our definitions? Cause we talked about the fact that there were so many.
Yeah, we have tavern.
We have tavern, okay. You okay with that? I'm fine with that.
So do you want me to make that change here?
That'd be great. Brian, when it comes to, I know we're trying to get rid of conditional uses, but does that take away the city's ability to regulate impacts to some extent?
It can, yeah, if you feel like a type of business is going to have a particular load of impacts on the community that you're concerned about. Requiring conditions, requiring that it apply as a conditional use. Gives you that extra leverage to impose those conditions. It doesn't let you just, what we've talked about, you can't just deny the use.
Right, and they have to, and if they can meet the conditions, then we have to allow it.
Yes,
And what I think what we were trying to do was to include those conditions essentially in the permitted use. Here's the permitted use and with the
under special regulations.
special regulations rather than
Okay.
saying they were conditions.
Yeah.
So everything under conditional uses that is not lined out will be a permitted use, correct? We'll move up to be a permitted use.
Well, that's the proposed.
That's the, let's see. Lockout rooms. Didn't we say we didn't want lockout rooms? Great.
Yeah, so you currently have condominium rentals.
Right, but we wanted
Do you
to,
want to strike?
we wanted to strike lockout rooms.
But that, by listing condominium rentals, is that tied to that short-term definition? I guess we need to check.
No, not necessarily, because a condominium rental can still be for more than 30 days. So you can require that the lease be more than 30 days.
You just.
Can it be more than 30 days?
Well, so
We require it to
actually,
be 3
I think
months.
we need to call it condominium unit, because condominium
Yeah.
rental definition refers to condotel. in our list of definitions.
Okay.
So with that said, we need to change that to condominium unit or dwelling.
Hmm.
Um. So which between unit and project? I mean. Condominium dwelling unit?
Yeah, just condominiums, right? I mean,
How's that different from the page?
because the
I
time
guess so.
shared, the multiple owners, that's the multiple owner piece.
But this is one owner, but they rent it whenever they don't want to use it.
Yeah. What it just kind of, I mean, why wouldn't it just say resident dwelling? Why isn't it just a,
Yeah.
why isn't it just a condominium? Why does it have to say rental apartment?
Well,
What's that?
the way I understand a condotel or a condominium rental unit is it's kind of a hybrid where the unit is owned individually.
I'm sure.
It's similar to a timeshare in that except that it's one owner, but then when they're not using the unit is rented out through a management company.
Oh, I don't, that's short. Yeah,
So it could be used for short-term rentals.
no, so you want to charge.
It could be used for longer
Well,
period rentals.
right,
but,
and I think we're okay with having the, if there are condominiums that are built there, that they could be rented, because one of the things we're trying to make sure we do is be cognizant of our need for housing. And short-term rentals don't help us with our housing concerns, rentals help us with housing concerns. And as do having those places be available for purchase. So, I think we want. I mean, a condominium, there's nothing that says you can't, if you own a condominium, you can't rent it, we're not requiring that they be owner occupied.
Yeah.
The only place that there would be a requirement for owner occupied would be the definition of a bed and breakfast dwelling, because under that definition, the owner has to be present and live there. In the dwelling, not, I don't think in the inn and not in the bed and breakfast. Hotel.
Okay. We had a question about recreation lodge.
So according to the definitions that we've passed along,
Yeah.
a recreation lodge is a lodging facility with up to 16 rooms that can be rented to guests for overnight stays.
Okay.
It usually includes, it's more like a hotel.
Uh-huh.
That it includes activities like snowmobiling, horseback riding, or it may or may not include those activities. It's essentially a 16 unit
Six.
recreation focused.
And our B and B hotel, that was up to 20, correct? That the B and B hotel definition said you could have up to 20. I mean,
But the B and B is owner occupied.
I don't,
B&B does need to be owner occupied. The proprietor must reside on the premises.
in a hotel also,
No, just the B and B.
Well, I believe it.
I thought there were some differences. I can't
That's-
jump back and forth. I thought there was a difference in the owner occupation portion of the B and B dwelling and the inn and the hotel. I thought there were some differences where maybe the owner could live next door and come in, but they're serving the breakfast, doing it B and B style.
Okay, bed and breakfast dwelling, no more than 2 rooms rented out by the day, and Meals provided by the host. Actually, it doesn't say that the proprietor needs to be on
Okay,
premises. A hotel means a oh, yes, okay, owner occupied dwelling. And
That's in-
for the dwelling, and for a hotel, it's an owner or host occupied building in
Okay.
which 6 to 20 rooms are rented out, offering overnight lodging and meals.
okay, and what about bed and breakfast inn? Is that a separate one or is that something?
It's a third definition,
Okay,
and it is an owner or host occupied dwelling with not more than 7 sleeping rooms. So we've got
2.
0 to 2 is a home.
Uh,
3 to 6. Well,
I know, we've
there's
got
some
an
overlap
overlap
there.
one there.
We've got 3 to 7 can be an inn, and then 6 to 20 can be a hotel.
So do we wanna modify that and say 3 to 5 for an inn? And, well, I mean, are there any other differences where we would want that overlap? That you can think of, or should we change that so it's 3 to 5 and 6 to whatever?
I think we've already moved.
We've already moved
Yeah, the
forward.
definitions are all already set.
That information along with.
Oh, I see what you mean.
They haven't considered it yet, but
You're right, for definition, but
As I recall, the recreation lodge was stricken because this seemed to be written specifically for the zone outside of our now boundaries up on Highway 39. There's the piece by the ranch there. Talks about being in a forested area and some other attributes, so it seems to not fit in our current within our boundaries. Not that we don't want overnight lodging, it's just covered in other ways. They're not recreation lodge, is my understanding.
well, we do allow it in other zones. For example, the FV3 zone does allow recreation lodges.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I agree where it's something to be used in combination with some sort of recreational activity. I'm not sure that fits well in a
Where
commercial
the-
zone.
Right, especially where the existing properties that are in that zone are. Do we wanna just leave recreation lodge out? I mean, they can do that in FB3, and we wanna leave that out for now, and
I mean,
we can, if it becomes applicable later, we can revisit that another,
it does seem like recreation lodge would fit better in perhaps the F5 or F40.
Yeah. If it's gonna be there, yeah.
Or in a zone with closer proximity to a recreation space.
Or, yeah, space. I agree.
Okay.
Fred or Aaron, you have thoughts on that?
I also have Carrie on Zoom.
Oh, good, Carrie, great.
This is Erin. I'm good with the way it is. What you guys are talking about leaving it out and putting it somewhere else.
Taking it out, okay. Hey, Carrie, you there? Any comments?
I just barely got on, so keep going. I can catch up.
Sure,
Yeah, and I agree with Aaron.
yeah. I think I do too.
Public utility stations, I just added a note, to keep it as conditional, that seems to be consistent with all the other zones that we have written for.
So that you can have screening and distancing setback requirements.
Yeah. Are we moving on to additional design requirements, or do we wanna, are there more that we need to keep looking at here? We've got, now at the bottom, we've got brew pub, and then up at the top, we had tavern.
Well, a brew pub is considered different from a tavern because a brew pub brews the beverages on site.
Oh,
Tavern
okay.
just serves it.
Just sort of said, okay, let's leave it. We had a big explanation on why we didn't have more of those, even though a lot of people chat. But it has to do with wastewater, and so they would be allowed if they wanted to spend a whole lot of money addressing that.
Sorry, back to recreational resorts, I know we
Yeah.
struck item G, but then as you go down, talks about. Let's see, item Y, dwelling unit as part of a commercial building. Not a reference to, item double B, residential property rental and management agency for a recreation resort complex, so. That's not relevant anymore since we've stricken recreation.
You're taking resort out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I actually, the back up to F, horse rentals. And where it says up to 10 horses per acre if it's stabled. I think that's reasonable if the horses are only there for their proverbial work day. And don't just live there all the time.
I think that's another one that was written for the.
I have a question.
Yeah,
The residential property rental and management agency for recreational resort. I know we took the recreational resort out of this specific zone, but why wouldn't you be able to have a management office, like a real estate? It would essentially be a real estate office in that space for commercial.
Yes, we just edit part of that.
Think peak to peak management. I mean, that's kind of what that is.
So we'll just remove the for recreation resort complex.
oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
I mean, any management company should be able to rent a commercial space and manage whatever properties they manage. It shouldn't matter what it's specifically for.
Right,
Okay, I'm going back to horse rentals, up to 10 horses per acre if stabled. During hours, only during hours of operation.
What's that? I'll add, I guess, if you go to like a national park, the horses are stable, and we put out 10 horses on an acre, they're. It's been,
Yes, but we just don't have that.
yeah, this is.
I mean, if this was in, yeah, if this was in a we don't, I don't know when we have, and that's fine, but then. They get turned out somewhere. I mean, there are a lot of places where the horses stay. I mean, they used to have the buggy rides down in the carriage rides down in Salt Lake, and they had those horses stabled in, back behind the train station in a horrific, horrible place.
Mhm.
And it's fine if they're there during the day and then they take them out so they have a place that they go otherwise, but.
So you want to require them to remove the animals every night and move them back every
If
night?
it's up to, if they're gonna have 10 horses per acre, if they're otherwise. Otherwise, whatever we come up with from the ag committee, I think should apply. The ag committee has some. Livestock stocking language that's gonna come in, I think, at some
They
point.
do have some, or particularly for the agritourism, I don't know if they're
do we want?
commented on commercial.
It's such a small zone, I just don't, and it seems really.
Do we want,
Place this operation into this.
it kind of does, but is there a place? That horse rentals are allowed, I mean, if you look on Facebook, there's constantly people saying, is there a place we can. Go rent horses and go for a ride, I agree, I don't know that this is the place. Right, they're not in our zones, and I don't think they do it now, but. Yeah,
In my mind, that just seems like more like an agritourism type of activity that
Sure.
would take place
I
in
agree.
more of the rural parts.
yeah, I agree, should we just take that out for now, and if it becomes relevant later, we can talk about putting it back in? Aaron, Terry, and Fred, do you have thoughts on that? Are you okay to take that out, or do you, for now?
I think.
Oh,
Go ahead, Terry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, this is Erin. That horse rentals. I could see if it was like an office where you went to sign up to rent a horse and you went somewhere else to get the horse. But I can't see 10 horses lined up outside a commercial vehicle or a commercial place, like, like the Wild Wild West when you park your horse in front of something.
Right, and IFA with 10 horses out back stabled to go for a ride, or even, yeah.
Well, I think what you would see is one of the properties perhaps adjoining an open space zoned parcel or an FR for a trail perhaps
Yeah.
that connects through a residential area. And then the business would take the horse rides along that trail.
I agree,
Space.
I agree,
Yeah, I mean, I'm good with taking it out as far as this zone is concerned, and if it comes up, then we can add it back in later.
I agree.
yeah.
I'm good with that.
Why is there it's called yard?
Yeah. What's
Mm.
I wonder if that, it says F, I don't know if that was supposed to go with something, but let's get rid of that.
A yard is defined as an open space on a lot other than a court, unoccupied and unobstructed from the ground. That's an interesting definition.
Let's get rid of it.
Unoccupied and unobstructed from the ground upward by permanently parked vehicles, buildings, or structures, except as otherwise provided here. Yeah, that doesn't.
Back to the right.
Maybe there was something that got left or accidentally deleted. Let me check the original county definitions and see if or county. Commercial language, so.
It looks to me like it used to be part of the sentence before it, like horse rentals up to 10
Oh,
horses
yeah,
per
horse
acre,
or a
horse
haystack.
feed store or haystack yard.
That's kind of what it looks like to me, Eric, kind of say, because it's gone now. Anything more? Hey. Okay, moving down to 10411-5 additional design requirements. I know the small group on this had a conversation about, we feel like it's going to be important that we have commercial space available that is going to contribute to our tax base. And we have lots of other places where we have residential capability, especially with the new requirements on ADUs and all of those things. And so I think the small group was thinking that we wanted to increase, we thought it may be a good idea to increase the percentage of commercial area. Right now it says all the projects must consist of a minimum of 10%. And I think we talked about a significant increase so that we didn't get inundated with condominiums and had the ability to open things up for more commercial business. And I think we talked about even up to 60%.
And Lisa, I think, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think part of our thinking too was that the description of this area leans more towards that anyway.
Mhm.
And I think to honor whatever it is to honor the description of this zone, it would make more sense to increase, I would say up to 50 or 60%.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of places where we have housing being built, and this will allow for housing to continue to be built, but not necessarily filled up with just condos. I think it makes a lot of really good sense and allows us in an area that is specific, it's like the major intended use is it's a commercial area, so
So this is Erin, I have a question.
Yeah,
So would that be, so let's say a project is, like a 2-story building. So 50% of that, like the ground level floor would be like a retail shop or whatever, but you could put an apartment above it. Is that basically what we're thinking?
Yeah, I think mixed use is certainly a reasonable idea there.
But is that talking specific, I think she's talking, is this talking ground up or is this talking like footprints?
I-
Yeah, I just thought of that too. I'm wondering if we need to specify whether the 60% is figured out on the total build out of the parcel, or is it the building? Like Aaron suggesting.
Yeah. Because it says project, Brian, does that give us any guidance, or do we need to be a little more specific with that?
That's a good question. The way this is written, it's a little hard to tell. Because yeah, it could mean gross square footage of the entire project if they have multiple floors. Another way to look at it is not necessarily limiting, or it could be just, you have a 1 acre site and 1/10 of that is, or 1/2 of that is committed to commercial. I believe it would actually have to depend on the gross square footage of the entire project, because if you look at the entire project site, you're going to be taking away square footage for utilities, for parking, for any landscaping requirements that you have. And so you're going to have a remainder that is your buildable square footage. So yeah, I think it would also, it would consist of that total gross square footage, including multiple floors. I believe the maximum height for this is 3 stories anyway, so it's not like you're gonna be stacking condos from here to the sun.
What
So, in CB2, I believe there were provisions that required commercial to be on the ground floor. So I would like to copy those
Okay.
over into this.
Another consideration that's popular in mixed use developments like this is to require that the commercial front the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Street frontage
Okay,
would be commercial. It's challenging. You can't. I would be careful putting a really high minimum on commercial square footage, because a lot of times the developers that engage in this type of construction, well, it's always easier to sell residential space than it is commercial space. And so if you are giving them a project to include both, they're going to push for as much residential space as they can get, because it's easier to sell. It's faster return on their investment. And you don't want to put them in a position where they have an unbalanced, unsellable proportion of commercial. Otherwise, they won't take the risk and make an investment in project at all, and you'll end up with either residential or commercial and not the village
okay.
style.
So
Sorry?
what would you recommend there? 40%?
But, oh, sorry.
Well, it's a minimum. I mean, it's not a maximum.
Okay, all right, thank you.
What did you say?
A minimum, and we would like to up that to like 60%, a minimum of 60% commercial. Because we feel like we are going to need commercial space, commercial business, in order to help with our tax base. We're gonna need, yeah, and if we fill it up with condos, that's not gonna help us as much as we are going, we have a lot of other places that are allowing a lot of, that are primarily residential.
But they don't allow condos.
Right, exactly.
Right.
This is the only zone that allows for higher density residential?
The
Oh,
HR does, so the new HR zone allows for condos. Yeah, the new HR zone allows for condos.
well, and half of our master plan developments are allowing things like that. I'm not feeling a need to placate builders with this. I wouldn't mind if we renamed this whole thing just mixed use. It makes more sense to me that are giving a sense of commercial, the priority being commercial, and then allowing, like Aaron suggested, housing above, just like we've seen over at the physical therapy shop, I just, I'm done.
You know, we need some commercial business for, we need space for commercial business and a bit.
I agree, but if you, like, what Brian's saying is, I mean, we are trying to incentivize this behavior, right? Someone's gonna put the money down and take the risk, and he's saying if we require too much commercial, it makes it less viable for these developers to actually break anything to begin with.
I'm not saying tilt it in favor of the developers, but exactly like Tyson says, if you want them to engage in this mixed portfolio of commercial and residential properties, you can't make it too difficult for them to sell one side of that portfolio.
Okay, but do they have to, I mean, it doesn't have to be mixed, it can be commercial, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be mixed. A commercial business could come in and put their commercial business in, it could be, I mean, whatever, all the things.
But
All the things that we have here that they could be, and I mean, they could build a bed and breakfast. They could build all the things. We have a huge list of all the potential things of businesses that come in, and they don't have to be mixed use with condos above them. I just feel like we don't, I think we're fine to have an area that isn't the vast majority of residential.
I agree. And our last meeting when we were talking about the manufacturing zone, I think it was, we were lamenting that we don't have a lot of space, maybe even none left in that area. And maybe this is a way that we can expand into bringing viable commercial space into the valley. I'm kind of with Lisa. I don't feel like residential is being ignored within the zoning of the valley. I think it's very available, but commercial, we're kind of hitting a little bit of a dead end with it.
Well, and we already have areas that have condos, and condos, we struggle with water. And so condos are going to use, I mean, that's putting multiple families and strain on the water and strain on the runoff for wastewater. And I think when we look around, we have a lot of condos. We're going to have every single home in this valley is going to be able to build an ADU.
that's not entirely true.
Oh, it is.
No, it isn't, because you have septic tanks and all the other things, and there's things that have to be met in order to do that.
Aaron,
You're right.
when the law changed in October, the state law.
I know what the state law is. I know that if you have an 11,000 square foot lot or larger, it is permitted, but there are going to be other things that mitigate that. Whether you can have a second septic system on your 3/4 of an acre lot. There's other things that are coming into play for that. It's not just going to be a hot mess of ADUs.
Hey, but we're addressing the ability, I feel like we're addressing the ability to have affordable housing and more housing. For whether it's rentals or for regular, someone's family, whatever.
I mean, there's no sense in beating this to death. I mean, at the end of the day, some of us are going to agree, some of us are going to disagree, and we vote. So that's what it's for.
Okay.
I'm in favor of increasing the percent of commercial area, all on board. I'm not sure I wanna go over 50% at this point, though. I think. Thanks.
25 or 30.
I actually like 50. I mean, if we're gonna drop it, I really like 50. I think we really need that ability to have
I think you're
commercials.
still not within the Brian's point though, is you gotta strike a balance to make it viable for developers.
Well, and another thing to consider is, I guess this language was written for resort development. And it included recreational facilities, and other anchors that would attract, commercial activity as well as the housing.
Plus, typically where you have commercial, your housing is, I mean, if you're above a shop, your rent is generally cheaper than if you're in a condo complex next to the water on the reservoir.
I guess I know, I guess I think, I just don't think that 25% is, I don't feel like it's enough, but we can, we can.
Around and get a vibe.
We can go around and get by. I would say I'm okay with dropping it to 50.
Or increasing it to 50 from 10?
Increasing it to 50 from 10, yeah.
So
The
Brian,
reason-
on B, I keep reading what you wrote on B, and
Oh, 50% of rent.
I don't know that it's clear enough. A minimum of 50% of ground floor square footage, is that within a building? Or is that within the lot, the parcel?
It would be the gross building square footage.
Okay, because right now when I read it, it sounds to me like I'm coming in and I'm gonna build a shop or store, 50% of my ground. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Well,
Okay.
gross building versus, is it, they have a footprint or are you talking about gross? The entire.
It's 2-story, half of the first level needs to be commercial, is what it's.
Well, back to this A and the 10% versus something higher, we were
Still
talking-
looking at A. Are we,
Sorry.
are we to replace A?
No.
No,
What's that right at the top right there?
yeah.
Okay,
What's that right?
I thought we were talking about A and increasing 10% to something higher, and
Yeah, I did too.
Brian had suggested that we could potentially make commercial developments unviable if we make that too onerous, too high. And I wondered if Brian had a recommendation for a number there on the percentage. So we avoid that.
A 20 to 30% minimum is not uncommon. But there's no national standard or best practice.
Okay.
But you know.
I think we have to decide what we want in the valley. Whether we want more available parcels that can accommodate commercial, or if we want to keep focusing on condos and
And have Ogden continue to have all of the commercial, the areas and Huntsville and Powder Mountain, Snow Basin. I agree. I think we need to increase that and open the door for, and maybe because it's so much easier to sell condos.
Okay, but you guys are thinking about a
And then
condo
We
building,
know that
so
will happen. If we do that, then we need to up it and kind of and change that mindset and say, look,
Yeah.
you need to come up, be creative and come up with some good things.
I think there's going to be some developer that is not going to be freaked out by it. Somebody will come along that sees it as a doable project and that they want to take it on. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about, and if somebody doesn't come for a while and that parcel sits for a little while, that's okay too. I don't have a problem with that either.
I agree. So, well, does anybody else have comments or?
I think we should go through the rest of the items and then
Okay.
come back to some.
That's true. Yeah, we've got to
Check
start.
forth on the.
I agree. Minimum.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but Angela, why don't we just settle this and then be done with it?
Well, we've got the whole thing. We've got the whole ordinance to address, but we wanna, you know.
Yeah, but-
Was we can, someone, if we go through the other things, if this is the only sticking point, someone can make a motion.
Yeah.
And those in favor of whatever that motion is can vote yay, those against it, vote nay. But.
Well, this is Fred, then I'll make a motion that in A, that we make the minimum 30% of gross square footage of building area.
I would second that motion. Schaefer.
I would vote in favor of that.
I would too.
Okay.
Who's it?
I would say nay.
Nay. Zanger says nay.
Made the motion, Aaron seconded.
But do we want to get through the rest of the ordinance before we make a full motion?
I think we do.
Oh.
I think we
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Fred.
It was.
Oh, it's Fred.
Fred made the motion.
Sorry, Fred.
Fred, was that a motion just on a specific item or are you?
Yeah, Right.
Yes, it was on item A and setting the minimum percentage gross square footage of building area for commercial to be 30%. 30% minimum.
So it's in the
So
motion.
10 becomes 30 and then commercial doesn't get strucken out.
Or you can do it this way, or you can wait and do one big motion at the end and then just amend it as you
Yeah.
choose to make changes.
Fred, do you wanna make that motion now, or it seems like what we've done in the past is we work our way through the entire ordinance. And then we make our motion, and talk and make amendments. Are you wanting to make that motion now with that?
Well, yeah, I was trying to see if we could move off of this item, which we've been stuck on for quite a while, and was proposing that we set that percentage at 30. And it
I
sounded-
just typed a comment.
Go ahead.
If somebody wants to take a look at the comment that I just wrote on this, that would be great, because I don't want to talk over people.
Okay, sounds like you're on board for 30%. I'll second.
Well, Jim already, or
Already second.
Fred already had a motion in a second.
Okay, great.
Okay, so let's call for a vote. All in favor?
I.
Two.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and all vote.
Zanger nay.
I'm an A. Terry, did you vote?
Yes, nay.
Okay,
Then
okay, motion passes. Let's move on.
Thunder Day and Harvey yes.
Right, the Zanger and Barbara Pastor Renee's. And Lloyd, I got, yeah, everybody, okay. Okay,
Yeah, okay. Thank
All right.
okay,
What are the things you guys have? You want to?
So condo, we took out, since we took out condo rental above, because that was the short-term rental, we just changed it to condo
this from
dwelling.
and
And then I think in the,
it's not other overnight lodging use, but other overnight lodging use was gonna be like B&B's. Yeah,
So I don't know if it's redundant or if we just say dwelling unit. And remove the as part of the NPD. I'm not sure what all those distinctions. Do you know, Brian?
It was, let's see. No, I don't know why there was interesting. I guess if the master develop, I guess in the old language, if a master development was not agreed to, then housing was strictly limited to condominiums. But with an MPD, they could include other types of housing like apartments or just apartments or townhomes or.
So should we leave that in the event that we may give PD or let's take it out?
I mean, we're going to have a master plan development ordinance. Just because, I assume, because I don't think the city is going to want to give up the ability to make development agreements.
Mhm.
The question is, do you want to treat them differently in terms of the types of housing that they allow versus a project that does not enter a master development agreement?
Condominium would fit within the dwelling unit definition, would it not?
So just dwelling.
But would it need to be a condo? Could it be, I don't know, well, for example, an apartment complex that just rents out flats at, on 1 year leases or something,
That makes sense.
as opposed to them all being owner occupied.
Okay. I don't know, how do you all feel about that?
I'm fine leaving it for now. More just that I don't know what the consequences are one way or another, you know?
Anything else?
So you're reducing the number of units allowed per square feet?
I guess that's a question. If we've made that other change to 30%, is this kind of a moot point?
Not really. What this does is essentially it encourages vertical construction to the limit allowed by your maximum height. Saying that if you have 7,500 square feet of developable area within the project site, and this is square footage on the ground. This is not gross square foot for vertical buildings. But if you have, for example, if you had 15,000 square feet, you could put in 2 units. If we just left it the way it is with the strikeouts, the way it's currently written without the strikeouts is for 7,500 square feet, you get 1 unit. If you have 9,500 square feet, you get 2 units. If you have 11,500 square feet, you get 3 units. So it gives you a greater density to work with. If you have a larger lot, with the intent that, you're going to have commercial on the ground floor, but now you can build multiple units going up.
Yeah, I don't.
With a cap, because you're not going to go over your maximum height limit. And again, your developable area on your project subtracts all of the required parking spaces, all of the infrastructure, all of the landscaping, things like that. So just because you have an acre, just because you have 4,000 or 40,000 square feet of property doesn't mean you're going to be able to build, 20 units.
Yes, I feel like the other changes we've made, if they're in fact adopted, that sort of creates its own cap that we really don't need to also cap it here. In my understanding, it'll sort of self-regulate, yes, with heights and percentages and.
I agree.
Well, but you are capping this by not allowing, or by requiring a minimum of 7,500 square feet
No,
for
I'm
one
saying
development.
even 2,000.
Oh, okay.
That it's not going to just be an endless,
Oh, yeah.
there's other limitations.
Yeah, right. It doesn't just say you can just keep adding until you run out of square feet, so.
So are we talking about taking out what's lying out there, then you take removing the strikeout? Is that what you're saying?
I'm posing it as a question. Yes, we have another.
So Terry was the one that struck it.
I don't like it.
Her question is that it's too high density.
It is. And I keep going back to the whole idea of the master plan, and it's, you know, I know we want to accommodate as many people as possible, but I also think that we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't maintain a real close check on density and increasing density. And I go back again to, I don't feel bad for a developer. I just don't, they have so many opportunities. It's crazy. And I guess on my comments, I wrote 7,500 square feet would allow 6 buildings per acre. Does that seem like a doable density?
It would be 6 units per acre, which
I
is
know.
lower, that's lower density than, for example, your average townhome complex. Most townhomes are 8 to 12 units per acre.
Okay, so that kind of answers it. I mean, I'm fine. I don't feel like we need to have this zone density within this zone match another zone. It doesn't make sense to me actually, because this is a separate zone and it can be regulated differently than a zone that would allow a townhome. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. It makes sense to me. I also think that, you know, it might be nice to encourage some of the B&Bs. It'd be nice if we had, you know, some places where people who come can stay in a quaint, I mean, look at the lovely little hotel we have, you know, just next door here in Huntsville, and that's allowing people to come stay.
Right.
And when it's lodging, not like short-term rentals, they're bringing more into the community. They're not coming in, they're going to frequent our restaurants, they're going to.
Right. They're gonna help.
They're gonna be more, you know, they're gonna be more engaged with the community than if they're coming in and, you know, just staying. And I think we need lodging here, but we just don't need it in short-term rentals. I know we're not talking about short-term rentals, but I think it is reasonable to say we need some lodging, and to me, that's what we can get potentially in this area, because.
So Lisa, one other thing in my comments, I want to throw this out. Could we also address common and open space within the definition of this parcel? And could we require clustering of some sort, so that maybe you are, allowing the commercial and some of those condos or bed and breakfast, but there's still plenty of open space that is, greenery and plants and view.
Oh, I quite like that idea. I hate to see no open space and things just get built up, and that's what you get to look at.
These are pretty small areas though, so I think it's going to be.
Well, not all of them are small areas. Think about, I believe, this area over by the Lady Liberty barn down the street in Huntsville. If you go out to the highway and then you go south of that whole big area in there where the Lady Liberty barn is, that I believe is all zone CD1.
That's the opposite side of the road, again.
It's on the southeast side of the
Yes.
where the highway.
West side of the highway.
No, the
The west side is
320, which is also conditional.
Southeast side.
I'm getting about this.
Oh, okay. This area. Okay.
So we have that, we've got Chris's. We've got a port ramp. And
Fort Ramp's a pretty big parcel.
It's a very big
It's
parcel.
largely developed, not that it couldn't be scraped and rebuilt, but I think that's.
Port Ramp isn't developed barely at all.
Well, that's all that area that's over, that's.
Oh, right.
That's no basin.
Yeah.
Isn't it, then right, that's.
You're right, yep, that, and then we're not worried about the Stringtown.
It also doesn't mean the city can't rezone a new parcel.
That's right.
That's what I was gonna say.
So
It doesn't, yeah.
we're not limited to what's simply on the ground right now.
Right.
Well, that would require somebody coming and asking for that rezone, am I right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I just think this is a zone that I would feel really good about putting enough restrictions on it that it doesn't just go haywire. And we don't get more in there than we really want to maintain that whole general plan.
I'm fine leaving the strikeouts, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Is there, besides the strikeouts, is there something else that you guys felt like needed to be addressed?
The height was reduced to 35 feet.
Yep,
Um,
50/50.
Which is 3-story building.
I'm fine with that. Everyone online, what do you guys think about the height reduction from 50 to 30? 35, sorry.
I'm fine with the height on that.
Yeah, I am too.
Same.
Are you guys ready for them? I motion to move chapter 104-11 CBR 1 on for public hearing, with the change that we added with Fred's motion earlier for increasing commercial minimum to 30%.
This is Fred, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Zanger says aye.
Okay. That was unanimous. Let's move on to chapter 104-9-9, that's the F5 and 40 zone.
So we met over this one like a month ago, right? And then we were gonna get to that hillside information.
Right, and we,
And to the hillside sensitive.
and I think you guys moved the hillsides and ridgelines piece forward while I was gone, so is that, everybody liked that enough and got that going? I didn't want people to give it one more
Yeah.
look-see,
I don't suppose, Brian, did you take out the hillside stuff that was?
You know, I don't think I
Okay. So maybe when we make a motion, we mention.
to actually make sure we have that reference in there.
One thing, the city council has been receiving some feedback from the agriculture subcommittee.
Mhm.
And they have some comments about replacing or revising a lot of the changes on things like animal units
Yeah.
or home food, family food production, things like that. They want to make it consistent across all the zones where it's allowed, so AV3,
Yeah.
FE3.
And we wanted that as well, I
HR.
believe that part of it just didn't get into the motion.
Yeah,
And we wanted that to be consistent, so we totally, and honestly, we would have loved to have had that committee in action earlier, so that we could have had that input earlier to guide us. It feels a little like we were shooting in the dark and saying, you know, shoot, now get ready and aim.
yeah.
So I'm thrilled to have that group on board and providing information for us, and what I have seen and heard thus far, I'm totally support. So we definitely want that to blend.
So with that, making sure that this
Yeah,
animal use reference is correct.
Although,
this one doesn't actually. It lists the animal units, but it doesn't say what the min, how many per acre.
is, Brian, do you get the sense that the city council is going to just make that change to all the ordinances as they move them forward, or is it going to come back through us to iron out?
They're going to make the change themselves.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we all approve that happening.
Do we do anything different on this one then?
Looking through this one, maybe we'll check my.
We have the same language for family food production as far as animal units, but the other ones I feel like had a minimum of one animal unit per acre.
Well, all of
And we
the
changed the 1 to 2.
yeah, we changed the 1 to 2, and their recommendation is actually to not put a limit on animal units per acre. Because that's based on a forage standard, how much forage the animal has available on that space of land. They would prefer to not regulate the number of animals and leave it to best humane practices.
And we discussed that in
Yeah.
our guidance too.
I just imagine in 20 years when we have a super uppity planning commission or city council and people are getting pissed off because there's 1,000 chickens in someone's backyard in a residential area. And then they make more restrictive. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's more or less what Corbin had said at that meeting too,
Yeah.
having something gives you. But I also get the farmers want to be told what to do. And I just want to clarify too, this is talking about, it's more like the backyard chicken ordinance than it is about telling farmers on larger acres what they can do. But I digress.
Yeah, well, I think that,
And they wanted a clear exception also for animals kept by children under the age of 18 for educational,
yeah, before I answer that, okay, yeah, no, I think.
And they provided us a copy of that.
Okay.
So.
Great.
So yeah, the city council's on board there.
Yeah, and they're gonna do that. I think what we want is to just like, do we put some language in here that says, make it all match? I mean, that's what they're going to do. We're happy with that. I think, you know, we would have loved an opportunity to have that input as we were going forward also, so that we could have used that information in our work.
So when we make a motion, should we just say that we make our animal units consistent across with other ordinance, maybe? Would that be-
Yeah, and I can make that
Okay.
change before it goes to public hearing.
So if I recall, besides those things we just spoke about, the hillside issue was the biggest thing that was holding us up from moving this forward in the past.
And Ridge Lines too.
And regards everyone online, did you have other things you wanted to bring up?
Not I.
Oh,
I don't
know.
either.
We did have the removing commercial uses for now. That was Angela's recommendation.
With the exception of conditional uses for cemetery, church, utilities.
So under like the use table,
Yeah, I think what was conditional has been changed to
to 9.
non under the commercial.
Yeah, we've had a bunch of crazy, well, not just
Mhm.
very intensive commercial uses.
And of course.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. It was really good.
Never heard any question.
Yes, I'll make a motion that we forward a recommendation to the council regarding zones F5 and F40 per the drafted comments and removal of hillside and ridgeline references as those are covered in sensitive land ordinance. Removal of commercial conditional uses, make them non-permitted with the exception of cemetery, church and utilities that shall remain conditional. And create consistent language with regards to animal units as used throughout all the ordinances.
I'll second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
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 Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
Tyson, did you second?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to RMH or 104-19, that's the residential manufactured housing, RMH 1 through 1-6.
And as a reminder, I think the only reason we're keeping this currently is because there's an existing zoned parcel. That we're not changing, we had not proposed a change on the map, so it's on the to remain intact.
right.
And I think it can just stay the way, yeah, so you have a lot of thoughts on changing anything, it is. They want to change it, they may come in and request a zone change. But, so I think.
Where did we put that on?
It's at the very, very bottom of the list, it's not in a category, it's not in the.
Oh, that's right.
The only change I wanted to put out there is a possibility, even though this might go away, is just added a note item. I guess that they shall be located, that the home shall be located on parcels owned by the owner of the manufactured home. It's awkward wording, but basically so that someone's not going to sell land off from under a homeowner.
Oh,
That's not typical of like a manufactured home development.
Well, it depends, 'cause I made some phone calls today, cause I kind of thought the way you did, Aaron. But there are some areas where it is, it's an entire development and people own, it's more like an HOA that manages things and the people own the lots that they're on. Now, we don't have any of those.
There's a big one in Roy, just south of the airport, where the individual plots are owned by the trailer owners, and sometimes the trailers are rented out,
Yeah,
but the majority of them are owner occupied.
But in
Yeah.
this case, we only have one, the property owner already owns the land. Let's say 5 of those spots are open, is this gonna make it so that he would then have, or she would have to sell?
They'd have to sell the pads, yeah.
wouldn't it be a non-conforming use if it's already that way, or would they
Well,
want to do something?
This is tricky anyway, because the ordinance requires a minimum lot size of 4 acres. And the property in question that's zoned for this use is only 2 acres, so it's a non-conforming.
It's already
use anyway.
non-conforming use.
I don't need to complicate things if this is.
So I mean,
Issue, it's just my.
I don't think it's your intent, and I don't think it's the city council's intent to continue this as a use any longer than necessary. But they just don't want to rezone the property to,
We don't.
they don't know what to rezone the property to yet, and so they don't want to just leave this as a.
So maybe we just leave it alone as is and just.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, just for now, because it's for sale, they may. I think it's highly likely somebody's gonna come in and ask for a rezone and
We've already been approached for
Right.
rezone by the property owner.
but we didn't wanna do that yet because they wanted,
The city council wanted more clarification
Yeah.
on the impacts and they wanted consideration, but
So I'll
outside of the zoning map.
move
Okay.
to. I'll move to forward chapter 104-19 RMH 1-6. To public comment. With the minor edits. Regarding changing county to city.
Schaefer seconds.
Just a clarification question. That means you're taking out that sentence that Angela added in about owning the
Yes.
parcel.
It's
Correct.
Okay.
Check it out.
Okay, thank you.
And is it to forward to the council or forward for public comment?
Public comment,
Oh, yeah.
all of the motions so far.
Do we
This is-
have to do this one for public comments if we didn't make any changes to it?
Yes,
Yeah, it's process.
We might-
because it's
Okay.
brand new to the city, so it needs to go to the
Okay.
citizens.
So
Got
I
it.
recorded the question regarding prior motions to make sure we have that correct.
Aggression on 104-9, F5 and F40, you said forward to the council.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion then to forward F5 at 40
Public comment.
for public comment review. And whoever seconded it.
I was me, I said,
It was Tyson.
do we need to reload on the whole thing?
We just can, all in favor? Aye.
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 Zanger, aye.
And now this
Quickly,
one.
I,
Now we're
And
gonna,
on this one, we have not yet voted, so we have a motion and a second on RMH 1-1-6. We have the motion, a second, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Zanger, aye.
quickly, I,
Schaefer, aye.
Okay. Thank you. Alright, let's take a look at Chapter 108-17, Ogden Valley Pathways. It's in design standards.
sorry, which folder is that under?
Design standards?
PC draft ordinances, design standards.
So. I don't know how much attention everybody was able to give it, look, as I look at the comments from the interim committees. One of the comments says that this needs a ton of work. And so we need to keep that in mind as we move through. We don't, if we can, there are some of these that we're probably going to be looking at. And we don't have to move these all on forward today. We can move the ones we're ready for, and we have another meeting next Monday in which to finish these up, those that need to be moved forward for public comment for the public hearing that will be scheduled for May 12th. So I think this is not one that is terribly critical to get finished today. Actually, I think the next 4 are possible that we can talk about these, get started on our conversations and continue next week. And if we have everything done, I think even if we need a little more work to make sure we do a good job on these, I think we could even have one more public hearing later if that was all that we had left to do. I think, that we've got a few items left before and to make sure we're ready before the end of the moratorium. We have the critical piece.
So Lisa,
Yes.
I would like to do that because we have not even met in our small group for this. And I would like the opportunity to do that.
Okay. And I did make some assignments for small groups for these.
Oh, I thought I saw one.
I made some small group assignments. I don't
Yeah.
have that up in front of me at this moment, but I did ask people to get in small groups
Yeah.
to take some of these, correct? Does anybody have thoughts that they wanted to talk about the pathways now, or is this one you want to table for next week?
I vote to table.
Tyson, you're also fine to table it? Okay, Tara, do you want to make a motion?
Commissioner Zanger votes to table.
Make the motion.
Oh, so I'm sorry, say that again.
Make a motion, not a vote.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Zanger makes a motion to table chapter 108-17 Ogden Valley Pathways to a future meeting.
Okay,
Lloyd seconds.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Zanger,
Hey,
aye.
Can we talk about agritourism really quick,
Yeah.
just in case people have comments?
What's that?
We talk about agritourism real quick, just in case, I just wanna capture any comments.
Oh, for sure. I want to give us an opportunity to move through all of these. Tyson would like to talk a bit about agritourism, and I think we can work our way through short-term rentals. So let's move on. Let's move on to agritourism. Let's skip campgrounds, forest campgrounds, and move on to agritourism and talk about that for a bit. And then short-term rentals, and we can go back and talk about forest campgrounds later, or we can table that. Go ahead, Tyson.
So I know many of you may not have a chance to read what I circulated earlier today. That was essentially a memo from the Agriculture Advisory Committee. They've been working to create a draft, an entirely new draft for agritourism. And I believe they're meeting either this or sometime between now and the next meeting to finalize their recommendation. But I just wanted, and they wanted from us a chance to give any feedback so that they could perhaps incorporate that into their final draft before, hopefully in the next meeting or so, we would vote to move that for a public hearing. So if anyone did have a chance to read that, I'd love to hear your comments for their sake. I get that on the record, and also I guess just keep in mind this would be a slightly different approach than we've had with other ordinances, because all the other ordinances we've modified the current ordinance, and they are going to suggest an entirely new format. So with that, if you guys have any comments, I'd love to hear them.
So Tyson, do they bring that to us or do they go directly to city council with that?
It's a complicated thing that I'm not totally understanding, but, and maybe you know, Brian, but they report to the city council, but we're still the ones that would bring it for a public hearing. So I don't know how that down.
Yeah, they need to provide it to the planning commission so that you can make a formal recommendation. It's not their job to recommend land use ordinances. It's their job to recommend policies, and they can recommend language for land use ordinances, but they don't have an official role in, I mean, they can, now I'm talking over myself. They can come up with example ordinances and provide them to the city council for review, but that is not the same as the codified responsibility of the planning commission to formally review and recommend to the city council. So yeah, the ag committee should be bringing any proposed changes to the planning commission first.
I do, if I could jump in?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I would love, if there's time allows on our agenda, future agendas, I would love when they're finished with their recommendations to have a presentation similar to our water group.
I would like that too.
Okay, so
I would like
that'd be
that.
helpful, other than, beyond just reading the document, and
Yeah.
that'd be super. And so if we could get a sense for how much time would be needed, and we could build that into a future agenda.
I can reach out to Ian, who's more or less liaisoning this
Yes.
information. I'm sure you.
I think that would be
And he's
valuable.
working with Ty, correct?
Yes. And I think they have a president. I don't know. Yeah.
Ty is the one
Ty is the
that has been
president.
speaking with Don on the city council.
So I do have
The president.
a lot of questions, I guess, to pose for
Yeah.
the group and for planners. So I think there's a lot of subjective, which I think is positive, where we want to keep it loose and free, and each situation is unique. But I think from a approval standpoint, it would be helpful for the applicants and the planner if there was some sort of criteria checklist for approval. I've seen, for instance, a design standard where you have a scorecard, you know, you hit this, you get 5 points, you do this, you get 2 points. And so it doesn't have a prescriptive, you must do all of these things, but on the whole, if you hit within the target, you know, and things add up, I don't know, it's just an idea
It's
that
an
how do
idea.
you evaluate,
Yeah.
kind of, because it talks a lot about, well, we don't want kind of fake agriculture
Yeah.
happening, and so what defines that, right? Like, what are the signals that we can just have a checkbox system for?
Yeah.
I think would be great.
Okay.
And then what would be the process for inspection and validation, that the criteria are maintained over time to allow continued approved agritourism use? So it's a one and done, they apply, they build it, and then what sort of monitoring would be needed over time would they need to kind of renew any kind of registration?
Well,
permits,
if it's a
or-
conditional use, then the city will have a policy to annually review all conditional use permits to make sure that they're in compliance.
Okay, so in that hypothetical situation, there are several buildings involved that would be out of the norm of other uses that are particularly unique to agritourism. If they fail the test, do they tear those buildings down? What happens? What becomes of those structures?
Well, the structures don't change, the
Right.
use is discontinued. They're not allowed to engage, they're not allowed to receive a business permit or a conditional use permit, and any activities agritourism related on the site, without a permit would subject them to, legal action and a fine from the city.
So if they build some sort of housing component, say, for on-site agritourism that's not permitted for any other use, does that just remain vacant?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, if it's only allowed as a component of agritourism. For example, the lodging component that was,
Yeah, either farm workers for staff who are working or for agritourism lodging. Okay.
okay, so to be vacant buildings, which would be great.
No, that would be great.
and there are different ways to enforce that. I mean, if they're out of compliance. Maybe certain uses are restricted. And others are continued to be allowed, but. It could kind of depend on the nature of why they are no longer in compliance.
Okay.
But yeah, if the conditional use permit is revoked, then all uses associated with it would need to cease.
Okay. And then with the family compound idea, isn't that covered with our cluster subdivision ordinance? What would be different about it?
I don't know off the top of my head, but,
Yeah, just a question.
Yeah,
We agree.
yeah.
And then just kind of a thought, I know we haven't opened the door on the TDR discussion, but I wonder if there's a way to have a voluntary collective, if you will, where landowners could opt their TDRs into a collective pool, so they had negotiating power for pricing structure, so they're not underbidding each other against those TDR values, maybe sort of first in, first out system, where if they opt in, they're kind of first in line to get sold off, but if there's sort of some collective bargaining of market rate.
I agree with that. How does it relate to agritourism? Is it just a side thought?
Well, there was stuff in here about, stuff we wrote about. I thought there was.
So, number 16, transfer development rights, subdivision and economic safety valve. Many of the agricultural in the community want to continue the use of TDRs. And the city council is very sympathetic to that, and they're very concerned about making sure that we have an appropriate management ordinance in place to address TDR,
And I
that TDR market. And that's exactly, Angela was speaking to is making sure that there's a mechanism in place
yeah,
to allow for cooperative sales or.
On that note, why can't I just go to eBay?
I mean,
He's like, already processed. Just put it on auction, highest bidder wins.
There are, I mean, I've had folks express concerns about that to me too. There are a thousand different ways to regulate TDRs, going all the way from setting the exact number within a sending area and pricing them and then fixing that price. Um,
Interesting.
which
Pretty supportive.
comes with its own whole set of pros and cons, going all the way to just that, kind of free market, laissez-faire, put it on eBay and see see who bites.
Yeah.
And which is
It's still, not everybody has to opt into that program. There's gonna be the basic legal structure of TDRs that gets established, and then there might be kind of a creative interpretations of how people want to.
Yeah, I don't-
It's just one off, because not everybody knows how to sort of use the system to their benefit, right? And they don't have time to go through all the legal structures and they just say, yeah, I've got this acreage, throw it in there,
Yeah, yeah.
and somebody else will manage it, so. I facilitate if there's a entity, volunteer groups.
Yeah, so and I don't know how much appetite the city council has for becoming that TDR
Right.
bank, as it were. But yeah, if there's perhaps a nonprofit group or even a for-profit group that would be willing to take on that management, I think, the city council right now is open to options to discuss, but yeah,
Can you restate what you said initially then about, like, what was your idea? Because
Um,
2 years.
A voluntary co-op. Where fair pricing structure, market rate pricing structure could be collectively agreed upon. So that people aren't trying to underbid each other.
Okay.
And it's leveraged the value of the kind of collective bargaining.
So does this comment about TDRs, is this an overarching concern about TDRs from the ag community and from everyone? We understand that TDRs is gonna take a lot of work. That's why we have not addressed it now before the moratorium, because this is gonna be a big one. We have to get other things done, so we will be working on TDRs. How does this relate to agritourism right now?
I don't know either.
Okay,
Unless, which I hope we don't, but if we were to assign like. If agritourism had to have development units to exist.
for example, lodging units, if you wanted to add lodging units to
Yeah.
your property,
Yeah,
would the
yeah,
requirement
TDRs.
be to bring in those TDR credits in order
Right.
to add units to your property?
yeah. Okay,
If we didn't require development, we'll see how it would apply otherwise.
okay.
Yeah.
I think it's good for us to be looking at this and starting to think about it and wrap our heads around, and I don't, yeah.
Anything else, Angela? You know,
I'm good.
Anybody online? It's really helpful. I'll pass those along.
Fine.
Did you-
Yeah, I don't have any comments.
Okay. And our small group, which is Jim, are you on the small group still, or is initially you had Brad, myself, and
Me.
and you, and now.
Angela.
And Jim is doing,
Oh,
because Jim was initially on that.
Jim, yeah, you, Jim, and Angela,
Okay.
that's who it is now.
So I'll send your comments over to Ian for the ad committee, and then hopefully we can all meet at some point to
Okay.
figure that out.
Okay.
Thank you. So, do I have to motion to move on to something else or?
So table this one,
I'll motion to table agritourism for a future discussion, a future meeting.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Zanger, aye.
Blakely, aye.
Okay. Let's take a look at chapter 108-11, short-term rentals. And then, and see what we think about that one, and then we can go back to forest campgrounds potentially.
Is that small group, Matt? Do you know?
I don't think I have it, I think I'm on that small group and I just got that.
I
So
saw comments, I don't know who else is on.
I had some comments that people.
So where is that one, Steve? Fine.
It's in design standards, it's number 11.
And this is, for the clarification, this is not adding short-term rental, this is applicable to the management of the short-term rentals that are currently in existence. And Brian, were you able to get us any of that data on how many licensed short-term rentals we have and where they are and what are the other areas that are already, we know are in development agreements that allow short-term rentals?
We still don't have the numbers of licensed units, at least nothing that I feel comfortable sharing with you yet. In terms of where they are allowed, again, we haven't gone through every subdivision agreement historically to discover, because there are subdivisions going all the way back to the 2000s that have these notes. We haven't had a chance to go through those yet, but most of the subdivisions that are zoned RE15 and RE20 and FR3, so Wolf Mountain, essentially, or Wolf Creek, I'm sorry. The development around Wolf Creek, those are all either through master development agreement or subdivision plat, those are all allowed to provide short-term rentals.
I think, just as we're not addressing where else we might want them now, but I think that it's gonna be really important for us to understand where they are and how many we have.
And there's
before we can do anything else.
Yeah.
I think there's a substantial amount.
There's a lot of confusion. I just took a phone call this morning. Under county code, prior to January 2nd of this year, AV3, FV3, AV3, FV3, and even the RE, the residential estates zones, have not allowed short-term rentals.
Okay, that's not different.
So it is not different from what
Right.
what you have been proposing. But as I said, most of the RE subdivisions have that either in a development agreement or in their subdivision plat. But there's a lot of confusion. People I'm positive there are short-term rentals operating in neighborhoods that are zoned 83 or FV3.
Oh, yes.
We are
And-
too.
Yeah, and I took a phone call from a property owner this morning who had just assumed that his FV3 home
Was fine.
could be used as an Airbnb.
But I think that's a separate question that we'll address.
But yeah,
Talk about that.
Yeah,
The
the
answer is no.
undocumented operating
Right.
units is a whole other problem. But
Right, and that's why we will address that later, but you don't need them. So this is just managing the ones that are currently legal, licensed, or have permission to exist should they ask to do so.
correct.
Can I jump in with questions?
Please.
Right, so does this retroactively applies to then everybody that's in an agreement and that has legal short term?
Yes.
Okay. Taxable, there's some comments about taxable as an investment property, is that just kind of a given, if it has a business?
The applicable taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it has they are supposed to be reporting their activities to the state tax commission for sales tax and for transient room tax
Right.
collection.
And there's been questions about taxable as a non-primary residence.
Well,
You can-
that's a challenge because you can still rent your primary residence out as a short-term rental.
But there are lots of places that have, and I think Utah too, your owner occupied, your primary residence is taxed at one rate.
Yes.
If it's a second home, it's taxed
Yes.
at a higher rate. If it's a rental, it's taxed at a higher rate, and there are a lot of places that have different levels of actual rentals that say, you know, what those can be, and then short-term rentals would be another one on top of
I'm
that.
not sure Utah differentiates between anything other than whether it's your primary residence or not. I don't think it breaks.
Can we, as a city,
No, because well,
I can
that's a
tell you
great
that,
question.
I mean, I can tell you that East Lansing, Michigan does. You know, because I have a property there that is, you know, and it's taxed as a class 2 rental.
Right.
But we
And
don't
I
have
go
those.
through an actual licensing procedure and get a license to rent that, to rent it out to my daughter, but, which is fine, I totally support it. I
Well,
think we need to keep track of this.
Licensing, absolutely. They already require a license.
Mhm.
Any rental in the valley requires a license. Modifying the tax rate, I'm gonna have to look into whether the city would be allowed to do that.
Okay.
Because the county assessor is still the one that collects those on behalf of the city and then redistributes them. So it's not, it's not something that the
It'd be
city.
good to know if we could, you know.
The main thing to me is that the violation penalties seem really weak. If it's just you have to give up your nightly rental, there's not much of a risk there. How can we make that a little bit more deterrent?
Yeah.
Is that what we're addressing right now, though?
Mm-hmm. Management of STRs.
Okay, but if you have a license, what are you going to get penalized for?
No, this is, if you go to the bottom of the document, it talks about different, let's see, different violations, different levels, types of violations, and
Okay.
different penalties based on whether it's minor violation or a major violation, including
Okay, yeah.
without a license.
Yeah, I agree. They don't mean anything. I mean,
So,
they
well,
don't hurt at all. They don't hurt at all.
it needs to be, how are these collected? Are they liens on the property? Are they?
I mean, they can be fined.
And
I
then,
need to check, but at least in the case of many nuisance enforcement cases, it's a misdemeanor criminal offense. And if they continue, or at least if they continue to reject cities' petitions for a change and compliance, it can become a misdemeanor criminal offense, and they will be fined, and they can be fined daily until they're in compliance.
so I think that should be clear.
And if they don't pay the fines, then they start putting liens on properties.
So
and-
can we clarify that in here?
I think we should.
I think we
Or
should
or
too.
does that, or Brian, does that exist somewhere else in another
No.
statute?
Well, it should
Those
exist
parameters.
already. It should exist already in the city's nuisance ordinance. Most of, or also in the business license ordinance. I could look those up really quick, but under the nuisance ordinance, if failure to comply can result in citations and fines. And if I'm pretty sure similarly, operation without business license becomes a misdemeanor.
But can we do fines specific to short-term rentals?
You can ask the city council if they want to, yeah, or you can recommend it and see what they do. I don't know if they are as keen to punish them any differently than they would any other nuisance.
I think the fine should be commensurate with the cost of enforcement.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have to pay for compliance officer and track this down and administer, it should at least cover those costs.
I agree.
So
Well, it sounds like we should look at the city's nuisance ordinance and business license ordinances first before trying to
Yeah.
layer something more in here. And maybe those need some tuning up.
Well, those aren't ordinances that we need to review though. Those right-
Well, but I mean, you don't have any authority to recommend changes to them, but if you want to see how they compare to what your interests are.
Right, yeah.
Let
So
me see.
Brian, is the definition minor violation or major violation, is that a standard?
Not that I'm finding, no.
So it's not like a legal definition with some sort of standards attached.
Let's see, where did we go? How did I get back up here? Sorry, guys, making everybody car sick with me flipping through the document really quickly. Yeah, I don't know if we have a clear definition on what a minor violation is. Let's let me check my definitions real quick.
Because I'm wondering if we can just maybe they don't need to be classified as minor or major. Maybe we just don't even have that definition. It's just first, second, third offense.
Well, I think it should be different for someone who actually has a license versus.
Well, I agree with that totally. I think addressing illegal short-term rentals is kind of its own little can of worms.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't even get into that right now.
So another thing I think would be helpful to add is some sort of a clause. Well, this is actually the rental agreement though. Never mind, that doesn't apply to short-term rentals. Take all that.
See, I don't know. Let's see. One warning. So, I mean, this says you give the owner, the owners, you give them a minor violation, then you give them one warning, and then you take action. And I just think I want to treat short-term rental owners as adults and eliminate loopholes and just say, look, you've got your warning. This is what you need to do. If they don't take care of it, they don't get another warning. It gets escalated. I believe escalation is impetus for them to correct whatever the problem is. And to come into compliance for a license that they asked for.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with Terry on that. I think this is way too lenient. I could see this going on for years, actually.
It just gets dragged out, and I don't love either that they get a warning and it's, within 12 months. If you get 3 warnings within 12 months, I think, no, you should have had that cleared up long ago.
They'll keep doing it if they do, that 12-month deal. I mean, they'll do 2 short-term rentals and then in 1 year, and they'll wait to the next and do 2 more or whatever. And that's all they kind of need to do.
Because you're down at the top of page 12, after 2 minor violations within 12 consecutive months, I say, I don't know. I'm thinking out loud. After 2 minor violations within 6 months, I want to send the message that the city is serious about short-term rentals because we value our city and we want to make it a place that is really comfortable for everyone to live.
But Terry, I really agree with you there, and I think by simplifying it and saying, first offense this, second, first offense you get a warning, second offense you get a fine, second time it doubles, third time, it increases exponentially. I mean, I'd be fine with that. And I think the administrative costs would go down substantially.
Absolutely.
We say, look, here it is. We've got on record, you've got 1, so here's the fine. it is, the administrative cost of keeping track of something like this is horrific. Who's gonna keep all these charts and graphs to say, well, let's see, they had one here, but they didn't have one there, that, you have to have full-time staff, multiple full-time staff to keep track of all of that. I agree,
Well,
I think.
And maybe part of the licensing process for a short-term rental includes a pretty hefty fee for monitoring. And then the fees, somehow we increase the fees enough that it goes into that monitoring pool, I don't know what else you want to call it, so that we can maintain enforcement. And that's where I think it has to hurt. So that people are really conscientious of running their short-term rental the way it should be run.
Sure, because these are I shouldn't say many. Numbers of these short-term rentals are people who aren't even around, and that's where we get the big property managers that are taking care of things, and they may or may not take care of things, but it's, yeah. So I absolutely agree with that. The other thing with licensing, one of the things they do in East Lansing, my property has to have an annual inspection, from HVAC, plumbing, electricity. It's a quick walkthrough. It only took about 30 minutes. They send everybody in. They all walk through and check all the things, but it really makes sure you have a safe place, if whether it's a rental or a short-term rental. But I've had numerous people call me and say, these places that are being used as short-term rentals aren't safe. The decks are gonna collapse, or
I think we should put that in. I think that's good. And I think that it's at owner's expense. That they have to pay for a yearly inspection, and that it's almost like having your home building inspection, where they give you a list of things that maybe need to be taken care of. You're given so much time to take care of them. And, I just think that, I don't know, it makes sense to me to do that. The other thing too, though, one other thing that I would like to change, and I don't know where it is, I'm gonna have to find it, is having the response of an agent or an owner to a problem, whether it's noise or light. I just think I want it to be quicker. I don't know where to find it. Let me keep looking.
I saw that somewhere also, and I think that's you might live in Chicago and your agent might live in Salt Lake, and so if there's a problem and they call, are they going to respond? Probably not.
Yeah.
Is Corbin on this call?
No.
Brian, do you know how enforceable it is to have, let's just say the fees for this are way higher than any other fee we have in the city? Is that?
You've got to justify it. Why is it different for short-term rentals than for everybody else?
Okay.
For enforcement.
What would say the enforcement of that?
Why is enforcement on short-term rentals different?
Because you have more turnover.
So are you going to inspect every time?
No, annually, that would be,
Okay.
I mean, I think that would be, I would agree that would happen for a regular rental as well. If you're getting a license, I think that would happen for a rental or a short-term rental. I think that.
Okay, I don't think the city requires inspections for business licenses as a landlord.
I think they should.
Sure they do.
I think they ought to.
The kind of consequence would be if we have to suddenly have the same level of intensity for everything we do. Average work, and then you're gonna have all these farmers pissed off because you're forcing them to pay to have an inspection of their farm or something every year.
Well, I think if they have housing on their farm, it needs to be safe.
But it wouldn't just be for the housing, it then go into everything else, because you're setting the precedent that anything that requires oversight requires an egregious fee.
I don't think that's what we're saying.
I think the difference is this is a commercial endeavor. A farm, I mean, it's its own type of commercial endeavor, and I think it could be it's it can have different standards than, say, I'm running a grocery store or I'm doing, I don't know what else it might be, but it's a totally different commercial endeavor. And I think it does lend itself to having some different kind of follow through.
Well, is the problem, we're trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist? I mean, is the problem really that we have rundown, deficient, unlivable?
I've had numerous people call me and say, you're on the planning commission, I want you to know about this short-term rental in this location. Here, I'll give you the address. I actually am a cleaner. I clean this place and it is totally unsafe.
Oh.
I mean, the deck is about to collapse, the water heater, whatever, the electrical is not safe, and yeah. And so I think that if people are living and sleeping in these places, I think it is incumbent upon us to ensure that those people are safe. And I think that would apply to a rental or also to a short-term rental. And if ag tourism is bringing people in to sleep in dwellings, I think it ought to have safe electrical so that the place isn't gonna catch fire at night and burn down. And I think that is reasonable. I think it's going to be relative to the size, but I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that if you're taking money from people to stay overnight for some period of time, that there's an expectation that it is safe. I mean.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Some words aren't appropriate.
What was that, Aaron?
I said I'm gonna play devil's advocate.
Please do.
Where do you draw the line at these inspections? Like, because for a residential home inspection, if you're buying a home, you can have mold tests done, you can have a meth test done, you can have a radon test done. I mean, there's any number of tests that cost varying amounts of money. Termite inspections, like, are you gonna have these people get a meth test because someone might come there and smoke methamphetamine in their house for the weekend?
I was honestly taking it that far, Aaron. My frame of reference is from the condo that we purchased in East Lansing, Michigan, and going through the process of getting a license for a rental. And the things I had to have a plumber do a walkthrough, I had to have an
No, I
electrician.
get that. I get that, but you're also talking about safety
Do a
standards.
walkthrough, and I think that was probably about it, but I think we could come up with something that's reasonable, and it has to be inspected each time my license is renewed. So there would be an interval at which a license would get renewed, and it would include a walkthrough to make sure things are okay, and if there's something that's
Lisa,
wrong.
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is if it's an annual test and it's a safety issue, there are other things that are also safety related, like mold, methamphetamine being smoked in your house for weekend, because that can be in high quantities. It can go into your HVAC system and be in your stuff. So if you're going to require something once a year, you should require something that's safe.
Okay, I guess we can discuss exactly which things, and that would be up to us to recommend exactly which things we think it is important to do. And I think that if the inspectors go through and they find that it's a meth house, they're gonna call the police.
No,
I think that's.
it's not a meth house. Like I have had real estate transactions with other agents where a grandma went to sell her house and she was, but her grandson lived with her and she had no idea, but there was methamphetamine residue all throughout her HVAC system. And you're talking about transient housing basically with STRs. So you have no idea what people are doing in and out of those buildings. That's what I'm saying.
And so what are you saying? You're playing the devil's advocate. Are you saying we should just let it ride and not care?
No, I'm saying if we're going to require something that regards safety, then we should look at all of the things that could be safety concerned if they're only having it once a year and it's part of the licensing process.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
open to,
I know. Let's discuss that. I think that's a good thing.
okay, yeah.
Fred's got his hand up too. He's had his hand up for a while.
Yeah, I thank you. I think this is a much larger issue in two terms. One is the issues you're bringing up as to what should be inspected for, and then secondly, where do we stop with those inspections? Just STRs or other businesses that we're going to say, should be safe too. And I have a home business license for my engineering consulting firm. Should that be inspected? I think that'd be idiotic because nobody ever comes in my house. But
No, but I don't. Okay, sorry.
so yeah, let me just finish if you don't mind, Terry. I think this is a bigger topic than we're going to decide on tonight. I think, if we want to take this on, it's something we have to have a working session on and look at all the licenses and decide who gets inspected, who should have an inspection, and then secondly, what does that include? And Aaron's spot on. There's a whole ton of things, and Lisa, are you going to decide what's reasonable and what's not, just because you had experience with renting your place in Michigan that had some requirements to do that? No, I think we got to look at this in a more holistic
Sure.
approach.
Yeah, no, I agree, Fred. I was just trying to bring up an example that was more than I think what I see happening here. So I wasn't saying that my example was the be all end all, only merely an example as a starting place for a discussion. But, I think restaurants get inspected by the health department, swimming pools get inspected by there are inspections to make sure that for public health and safety, and I think those are reasonable. And I agree, I think that this isn't something we're gonna resolve tonight, but it is part of what I think is this ordinance is about.
So are we going to table this then? Because
Well, we want it
after 5 o'clock right now.
We have till 5:30. I don't think we're gonna resolve this.
Okay. I didn't realize we had till 5:30.
Plus campgrounds. We've got a little bit more time.
But what about if we give this to Brian to make some modifications, his team to make modifications based on the discussions he's heard tonight, and then get that back to us? That might be the most concise way to go about this, because we've heard a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different issues. And if we could get, kind of a recommended version from our planner on this, that might be the most expedient way to get towards something that is very important to our valley and needed.
Brian is nodding, he thinks he can help us out with that, and I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, we can try and answer some of these questions, maybe prepare some examples for you of other management methods that other cities have used and enforcement tools. But yeah, typically it comes down to nuisance management and however your civil code deals with that. Though I agree, this kind of minor violation and major violation, I mean, they do eventually have penalties and revocation clauses, but I think it is a little more complicated than it needs to be. But I've worked with the city, with Garden City, for example, up at Bear Lake. This has been something they've been wrestling with for a long time as well, and so I can share some examples of how Garden City and other similar communities have tried to address these.
For next Monday?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you so much.
And then is there a team on this one, Lisa?
There is, I don't have it up in front of me. Wait, let me see if I can pull it.
I'm on it.
Are you, and I think, am I on it?
It's Angela, Terry, and Lisa.
Yeah, okay.
One other thing is just
Go ahead.
I have reached out to a couple of communities here in Utah and talked to some of their or one of their planning commission members and just asked them, what are you doing? Is it working? What have you tried? And sometimes that's nice to just have that one-on-one with them and pick their brains. I mean, if somebody else wants to do that, they could do that. I've called Moab and right before Zion, Springdale.
Good idea.
One, another idea or question. I mean, what is Vrbo and Airbnb required today to rent places? Do they require any kind of inspection, or does it just go up? Or
No.
They defer entirely to the health code and local laws. They do not see themselves at all as an enforcement entity. They are strictly transactional in terms of matching a seller with a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
You can get on their websites though and look it up. As I went into it as though I was a prospective Airbnb participant, and it led me to requirements. And you can go look at that. It's kind of interesting to see. And it's interesting too how at least Airbnb handles taxing entities. They just kind of leave it up. You can do it through them or you can do it on your own. And that might be something that we can have teeth with, is that we require legal short-term rentals to do their taxing on their own, but they have to show proof of those taxes being paid.
Yeah, that's already in the code. Although regular proof isn't required, the city or the county at least reserve the right to conduct spot audits for the landlord to show that they were paying their.
Well, could the city ask for that too?
Absolutely, that's already in the code.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And we could, we could make it, you could change it so that it's required that, if they want to renew a business license, they have to show that they paid their taxes for the past year. It wouldn't be any good for a brand new business license because they don't have any taxes to pay.
Right.
Well, I would like to make a motion that our planner get supporting information or helpful information to our STR sub team, who would then meet and consider that, and then bring this back to the planning commission at large in 2 weeks, let's say, or 3 weeks if they need it, and then we revisit it.
Second. Good motion.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Zanger, aye.
Schaefer,
Blickley,
aye.
aye. Blickley, aye.
Great. Is there did anybody have a chance to look at the forest campground zone? Do we want to take a quick look at that? We've got like 7 minutes left. Or do we want to just go ahead and table that?
Table.
Let's look
I'd
at
like
it.
to table it.
I just want to hear real quick from Brian where you see this as being needed, so.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't see it as a listed use in any of the zones, so I'm not sure.
we do have the camp. There are the 2 campsites. Well, there are a couple of camps. There's the Eagles campground, there's the Bible camp, and the LDS church camp.
Are any of those campgrounds going up? I guess those are all, because there are a number of campgrounds going up before you get to Causey.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
aren't in our
public, but are those worth?
Well, so there's some Forest Service campgrounds, some of those are in city limits, some of them are not. The Eagles campground is in city limits, the LDS Church campground is in city limits, the Bible camp, I can't remember, I just talked to the owner the other day, but,
What
yeah.
about North Fork Park?
Our park has a bunch also.
But I don't see forest campgrounds in the city.
Anderson Campground?
That's, Forest Service.
Forest Service, just.
Maybe just like. So Angela's bringing up the point that we don't have that as a use.
Yeah, it is not listed as a use, I
So
mean,
is this essentially an ordinance governing non-conforming use? This is still in the city?
perhaps, yeah, where's my,
There is a comment that absent, with other code, that there are areas where somebody might choose to put a campground going forward, and so that's another possible reason for.
so the Eagles campground, for example, is F5, actually, I think all of the campgrounds are in F5.
Is Eagles private or public?
Yeah. It's private, I mean, they're open, they operate it as a public campground, but it's privately owned.
Okay,
It's the Fraternal Order of the
Oh.
Eagles, Erie, whatever number their
Okay.
number is.
Well, as I look at F5, campgrounds were moved to permitted.
Yeah.
Again, it's legal non-conforming, but, so we need information to govern.
Are you worried about a proliferation of campgrounds?
I'm not.
Would you be opposed to somebody coming in with a new campground proposal? In the F5 zone?
Not necessarily, but we'll put that on for public hearing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
So we could certainly circle back around with this if we decided we needed it.
So it sounds like it is needed to some extent, this
and yeah, you have also made a motion, you could recall the motion, or you could amend the motion in F5 if you want to.
Well, while we're on the subject, how do you guys feel about adding campgrounds back to F5 F40?
So if they're private, not public, I think is the difference, right? And that's. Like not commercial, non-commercial, because the ones that are. What we're talking about are all private entities, they're churches and.
Yeah, two of them are nonprofits and one of them's I don't know if the Eagles operate it as a for-profit venture, but I think they do.
I think looking at that, when we struck all the commercial uses, we got rid of agritourism, which was a mistake, campgrounds, and then a dude ranch would make sense in that environment as well. So I made the motion for that one, didn't I? For foursome. Did you check this recorded? Tyson, Lloyd?
What was the motion? I'm sorry.
So we're looking back at the forest zone and realizing that we actually made non-permitted agritourism campgrounds and picnic areas, as well as I'm thinking dude ranches also makes sense in that zone.
So your motion was to amend it or recall it back, or what was it?
I'm thinking if I can amend it just to make those as conditional uses.
That was 4-9 and F5
Yeah,
and F40.
yeah,
Angela made the motion and you seconded it.
okay.
Okay, I would like to amend my motion regarding. 104-9 forest zones F5 and F40 to retain agritourism, campgrounds, and what's the other?
Dude ranch, campground and picnic areas in one area.
Campground, picnic areas, and dude ranches as conditional uses.
I'll say
So which agritourism?
agritourism, campground and picnic area, and dude ranch. There, so the amendment is to change from non-permitted to conditional. And then Lloyd seconded.
And for which zone, sorry?
This is for forest zone F5 and F40. So we voted on it earlier today.
Yeah,
Amending the motion.
To move it from,
From the, well, it's here.
Okay, so we're amending the motion to retain agritourism, campgrounds, and picnic areas is another item, and dude ranches as conditional uses.
And I second.
Commissioner Wood seconded. Everybody saying second.
Dyson seconded.
And then
Is there any other comments before I call for a vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Schaefer, aye.
Zanger, undecided, so I don't know, I guess.
Blakely, aye.
We will have time to come back and address these in more detail over the summer. You know, again, we don't have to get these perfect tonight, we just need to get them good enough to.
Commissioner Zanger has to leave. I'm in a library and I'm getting kicked out of my room. So
By the way,
We all gonna need to move out. I see Sharon's about to walk in to start getting ready for the city council meeting.
okay.
So how about, we need to table, we need to table the forest campground zone, or we just table?
No.
Right, okay.
I'll move to table forest campground, zoning discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Blakely, aye.
I second.
Did you hear the motion to adjourn?
who made the motion?
Angela made the motion, Tyson made a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
aye.
Thanks, everyone. Good work.
Adios.
All right. Adios, amigos.
Thanks.